Guruve Gauri Chanjaya Radhikaya Tadali Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadavaktaya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Dandavat Pranam, devotees. So I am doing a question and answer session. It's only one question today because I think it will take enough time to give explanation here that I would not have time to go into some other questions. Let me get to the question and read it. Haribol Prabhu, Haribol to you and your family. Well, I'll skip all those kind of things. So, Prabhu, I've heard in a class that the goal of practicing sadhana bhakti is to obtain bhava. So, I always thought that the goal of practicing bhakti is to obtain love of Krishna, which is called prema. So what is the difference between bhav and prema? I've also heard that bhav comes after prema, like mahabhav and so forth. So I'm just asking for clarification as to what is meant by bhav being the goal of practicing bhakti. So Rupa Goswami Pad is described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that there are three elements in the pursuit of bhakti. The first is called sadhana bhakti. That sadhana bhakti is also divided into two divisions, Vaidhi bhakti and Raga Nuga bhakti. I've discussed those on previous videos. If I have time and I see it as being valuable to the discussion here, I'll try to summarize that again. But basically there are two kinds of practice of sadhana, Vaidhi and Raganuga. And the goal of the practice of sadhana is called a sadhya, or a goal. The goal of the practice of sadhana is to obtain bhav. Here the word bhav means the first ray of the sun of prema. That is the description that Srila Rupa Goswami has given in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. In the verse, Suddha Sattva Visesh Atma Prem Surya Anksa Samyabha Ruchi Bis Chittamasrinya Kridaso Bhav Uchate. So in this verse it describes Suddha Sattva. So we know that within the three modes of material nature, there is the mode of Tamogun, Rajagun, and Sattvagun. But here the word Suddha Sattva has been used. So even though we know there is a material mode called the mode of goodness or Sattvagun, it does not mean that mode. Nor does it mean a purified version of that mode. But rather here the word Suddha Sattva indicates spiritual energy par excellence. So in that spiritual energy par excellence, which is also called Swarup Shakti, there is no influence or even smell of the material modes of nature, including the material mode of goodness. So Suddha Sattva, Visesh Atma. The nature of this Suddha Sattva is that it has three components. One is called Sandhini Shakti. The Sandhini Shakti is pure spiritual existence. It's called Sandhini Shakti. It has another component called Samvit Shakti. So pure spiritual cognition in which one's own nature, spiritual nature and identity is known, and the relationship one has with Bhagavan is known. That is called Samvit Shakti. It is by that Shakti that one is aware of their relationship with Bhagavan, and Bhagavan is aware of the devotee. This all happens under the influence of what is called Samvit Shakti, which is part of Suddha Sattva or Swarup Shakti. Also, the third element is called Aladhini Shakti. This Aladhini Shakti is the essential pleasure potency within the spiritual energy. It is the energy that gives bliss both to Krishna and to the devotee. So, Suddha Sattva Viseshatma. This word Visesh means speciality. The speciality of this Suddha Sattva are these three elements that I just mentioned. Suddha Sattva Visesh Atma, Prem. The essence of Prem is the composition of this Swarup Shakti. There's another verse describing Ladini Sara Prem, Prem Sara Bhav, Bhav Paramakastana Mahabhav, Mahabhav Surupini Shri Radha Thakarani. So Shrimati Radharani, she's called the Adidistatri Devi, means the sort of root of the Ladini Shakti, this pleasure-giving potency. She personifies that pleasure-giving potency. Krishna is called the Adidistatra Deva of Samvit Shakti. And Baladev is called the Adidistatra Devata of Sandhini Shakti, or spiritual existence potency. You don't need to try to focus so much on how that exactly operates ontologically right now, because it may become more confusing. I'm just, for my own edification as well, going through what is described by our acharyas. So, this spiritual potency, Suddha Sattva Visheshatma, Prem, Surya Angsa. So, now a comparison is being made by Rupa Goswami. He's saying if you consider that Prem, or the eternal reality of the jiva in relation to Bhagavan, if you compare that Prem to the sun, Surya Angsa, a ray of that sun, is called Bhav, which is the goal of the practice of sadhana. So here he's not describing Mahabhav, which you asked in your question also. That Mahabhav is the result of the increasing progression of Prem. Prem is called Swayam Prakash and Swayam Ashwadam. So in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of Rupa Goswami also, it's described that the very nature of Prem is that it is Swayam Prakash and Swayam Ashwadam. It means it is self-revealing and it is self-tasting. So being Swayam Ashwadam or self-tasting, when love experiences itself, it increases, because the love itself is a phenomenon. It's observing itself, experiencing itself, and increasing. So Prem, under that understanding, Prem then becomes Sneha. Sneha becomes Pranay. Pranay or Man. Sometimes the order is reversed. So it could be Prem, Sneha, Man, Pranay, or Prem, Sneha, Pranay, Man. Then it becomes Rag. Rag, observing itself and being self-nourished, becomes Anurag. Anurag becomes Mahabhav. Mahabhav becomes increased to Rud, Adirud. Adirud again becomes increased to Modan in meeting, Mohan in separation, and exclusively and only in Srimati Radharani, who is the pinnacle of Prem. As I mentioned in the earlier verse, a special feature called Madan Bhav takes place. Madan or Madan Nakya Mahabhav is only in Srimati Radharani. Understand? So Prem has this progression. So this Mahabhav, which is the growth of Anurag, is different from the ray of sun of Prem that comes into the jiva when their bhajan has become, or their practice has become mature to a point of perfection. You understand? That ray of that sun of Prem is also called Bhav. So don't confuse the two. So this Bhav is what's described in this verse, Suddha Sattva Viseshatma Prem Suryangsa Samyabhak. Ruchibi Chittamasranya. From time without any beginning, the consciousness of the jiva, chitta is a synonym for consciousness. The consciousness of the jiva has been under the influence of the material energy dominated by the three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. Because of that, the functions of the consciousness, they're called vrittis, or chitta vrittis, have operated under that auspices. In other words, the nature of how our consciousness is operated is in relation to the material world. In order to make that happen, because it is not the reality of the Atma or the soul, a false identity is given. I've described this, so I won't go into it in detail, because I've described it several times on different questions and answer sessions, because it is a foundational understanding to glean our condition and where we are. So, the ahamkara, the upadi, which means the particular karmic designation you have in any given life, and the feature of avidya, of the material energy, or the ignorance potency of the material energy, called asmita, they work in combination to create a false identity in the material world, which the conditioned jiva has identified with it in temporal increments, one life after another. Understand? So the chitta vrittis, or the functions of the chitta, have been completely influenced by the material energy and have operated on this basis from time without any beginning. Anadi avidya yuktasha purushasya vedatmanam. Now, sambhavanti asvatona sambhavanti. The jiva, as I explained on another video, because of abhinavesh, which is one of the potencies of avidya shakti, can't extricate themselves from that influence. Svatona sambhavanti anya, it requires someone outside the influence of material energy. Jnanatva ganado bhavet. So these two qualities describe the qualities of a sadhu. Sadhu performs a function called guru. So jnanatva means they are realized in their own spiritual existence outside of the influence of the modes of material nature. Jnanadva means they give that knowledge to those who are still under the control of that material energy by their mercy. Right? So by doing that, it comes first from the sadhu in the form of something called shraddha. Right? So I'm beginning to describe the meaning here. Ruchi bis chittamasananya. We have to start with the first incremental stage of what comes from a sadhu that leads to a particular type of ruchi. Right? So the first thing that comes from a sadhu is called faith. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Pad, Srila Rupa Goswami Pad, they've written Ado Shraddha. In the beginning there is faith. Faith is the currency and the propelling energy that will manifest in the very beginning, Ado Shraddha, and will simply transform into the higher things as that Shraddha becomes mature. So the highest definition of Shraddha is Shraddha Shabde Vishwashkohe Shudrida Nishchoye Krishna Bhakti Koili Sava Kama Kritta Hoy. That with absolute faith, one realizes that every single thing that there's possible to desire and accomplish is all present in service to Sri Krishna. Shraddha Shabde, by this word Shabda we mean to say, Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kahe. Vishwas means a trust, a conviction, a firm belief. Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kahe. We mean to say that this Vishwas, this firm faith and trust, Dridanish joy, which is fixed, is that everything is accomplished, everything is understood, everything is only Sri Krishna and our relationship with Him. Right? That is it's called Param Artik Shraddha, means the highest kind of Shraddha. So remember, Shraddha is just simply a transformation. So the first element of that Shraddha that comes from a sadhu comes in the form of the ability to break that inextricable connection with material energy. So that's described Shraddha Anupayani Varajam Bhakti Unmukhi Chitta Vritti Visesh. So remember I described the Chitta Vrittis, the functions of consciousness. So when that Shraddha coming from a pure sadhu has an effect on any jiva, it turns their function, the operation of their consciousness away from the material energy and its influence towards the spiritual energy. When that happens, then the jiva can start to walk the path of spiritual life. Until that time, the jiva has no power, no potency to begin that journey. So only when this faith, given by the association of a sadhu, especially the path of bhakti, right? Only when that faith coming from a sadhu takes its effect on a jiva can they break the inextricable connection with material energy and begin to walk the path of bhakti. That's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Brahmanda Brahmati Kon Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Poi Bhakti Latta Bij. So Bhakti Latta and Bij. So this Bij has also been described. The Bij means a seed. The seed in this matter that we're speaking of faith coming from a sadhu is something called mati or discrimination. I described this on other videos, so I'm not going to prolong it here. But mati means, and every devotee can testify, there was some point in your life where there was the arising of a question about existence. What is this existence? Why am I simply operating in this material energy and just suffering and this and that? In some way, form, or fashion, this question arose. This contemplation, this look at the nature of things at any point in your existence, it is called mati or discrimination. It is from that mati that one seeks out a way to answer that question. I told on many videos that Al Srila Sanatana Goswami Pad was the model in his Leela of getting Siksha from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was the model of showing what is this mati. By asking the questions, Kayami, Kene am I, Jareta Patrai. Who am I and why am I suffering? And then receiving from Sriman Mahaprabhu the summary answers, Jivera Sarupoya Krishna Nityadas, Jivera Tatasta Shakti Bera Be Prakash. So I've spoken this in other videos, so I'm not going to reiterate it here. But this is what is called mati. Then the bhakti latta is when there is some conviction by faith to walk the path of bhakti. At that time, then Krishna Seva Vasan. The tendency to want to serve Krishna arises based on that faith. It arises in the consciousness of the jiva and is generally related to previous practices in bhakti from other lives. So in most cases, devotees have a history in other lives of practice of bhakti. It is very difficult to come to the position or point where one follows the true line of Mahaprabhu unless there was some previous sanskar. Sanskar means a previous impression, right? So it's mentioned also by Rupa Goswami Pad, Praktanaka Aduni Chasti Yatsat Bhakti Vasana. That due to the influence of Bhakti Vasana means previous sanskars or impressions in Bhakti, one again picks up the practice. In Bhagavad Gita it's also mentioned. What is it? Suchinam Shinmatam Gehe Yoga Bhastra Vidayate. Even if a person does not completely become perfected in one life in the practice of bhakti, one will pick up that practice again from where they left off. Right? So it means that in picking up the practice, many of the same elements you experienced in this particular iteration repeat themselves, like meeting a sadhu, like coming to the point of questioning material energy, like accepting guru, like accepting harinam and diksha. These things are always repeated life after life until the maturation of the practice of the aspirant reaches the level where there's a complete resonance between the practice and the efficacy of the practice, which produces revelation. First it produces the information. You have an understanding what I'm doing. Then it produces realizations, right? So there's a realization of what the information is. Then it produces revelation, which is related to experience. So revelation means there's an experience in the consciousness. And these experiences are incremental stages of advancement in bhakti. From Shraddha, one first it has information, then realization, then revelation of what is the meaning of sadhu sangha. So sadhu sangha means first, what is a sadhu? Right? So this is all back related to the original verse, Surasattva Viseshatma. Right? So now I'm explaining Prem Suryangsa Samyabak. And then Ruchi Bis, Chittamasranya is what I'm explaining. So first, what is a sadhu? So Jiva Goswami Pad is given a wonderful definition of sadhu. Sadnoti sadayati cha Krishna prema itti sadhu. A sadhu is that person who's understood the ultimate reality to be Krishna prema. So there are many other people who can have the nomenclature sadhu. They may be Brahmavadi. They may be Atma Anandis, means they realize the Atma. They may be sadhus who are yogis or jnanis. But Jiva Goswami is described only that sadhu who's realized that Krishna prema is the absolute and ultimate goal should be in the context of this idea of sadhu sangha for Vaishnav. That person should be considered sadhu. To do their sangha, this word sangha means samyak rupain anugamana. This is the meaning of the word sangha. So the word samyak means completely. Samyak rupain, to have the form or the practice or the habit of completely anugamana. Gaman means to go or to move somewhere, right? So moving means progressing on the path of bhakti. So anugamana means to follow that sadhu progressively on the path of bhakti. So the word anu also has three specific meanings. One is continuous. So it means one should follow the sadhu continually. So we should try not to follow the sadhu sometimes. Other times we're doing our own independent thing, right? The second meaning is to follow. I already mentioned that. It means to observe the life and practice of sadhu and to follow that practice, right? So continuously following. And the third meaning is anutva. The word anu in Sanskrit means like an atom, very small. So anutva here contextually means humility. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told, Trenara pisu nichena toro eva sahishnuna amanina monadena kirtaniya sudahari. Even to practice the most fundamental practice of bhakti, which is kirtan, one can only really do that and have the real name manifest once one has become a Trenara pisu nich, means anutva, or very humble. Even in the 6 angas of saranagati, atmanikshep kalpanya, means to become very humble. So this is called sadhu sangha. Samyak rupain anugamana, I've explained. This is called sadhu sangha. When one is sufficiently following the sadhu, then the sadhu is giving instructions in bhajan. Bhaj datu itti sevayam. The word bhajan here means the mode of serving Krishna is called bhajan. You understand? This bhajan has an external feature which is called archan. So in the beginning of our practice, it is predominated by archan. Archan means like the archa vigraha in the temple and how we practice worshipping the archa vigraha. That form which appears as the deity or archa vigraha specifically accepts the worship in practice before it rises to the level of bhajan, where the actuality of internal mood is connected with the seva. And at that time it becomes bhaj datu iti sevyam. Datu means the root of this word is seva. But to serve Krishna, attahashi Krishna namani nabhavad grayamindriya. It can't be done externally. You understand? The external senses cannot serve. So we are practicing in the archan process with the archa vigraha. I will rise early in the morning. I will awaken the archa vigraha, the deities, Radha Govinda, Radha Muralidhar, Radha Shamsundar, Radha Madan Mohan, whichever deities. And I will begin to do various services under the guidance and auspices of my Guru Dev's mercy. You understand? This process is called archan because it has not penetrated the consciousness to a deep enough level where it's an actual experience of your Atma serving. We may still be in the process of becoming Saranagati even. And until there's Saranagati, there's not the possibility of being on a level to actually serve. So this process is service in practice. It is called archan. When it becomes mature, it becomes bhajan. And I've explained this means the actuality of service from the point of view of understanding your Atma. You understanding? And then being able to serve in the position of the Atma. Because in the position of the false egoism, the material mind and intelligence, and the material body, there is no ability to serve. Because these facilities are not imbued with bhakti. You understand? So, but you can practice with them. This is the meaning of sadhana bhakti, practice, right? Kriti sajja bhavet sajja bhavasa sadhanamida nitya sirisha bhavasa prakritam riddhi sajjata. Rupa Goswami described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that the use of the senses in the practice, this is called sadhana bhakti. You understand? And in the practice, as it becomes mature, nitya sirasa bhavasha prakritam riddhi sajjata, by the mercy of the descent, in this verse I'm describing earlier, Sudasattva Viseshatma, this Sudasattva will descend and reveal a nitya sirasa bhav. It will reveal the nitya sira bhav that you have with Krishna. Understand? Nitya sirasa bhavasha means prem. Prakritam riddhi sajjata, it will be revealed in your heart. So, but there's some specialities here, because it has also become somewhat of a common understanding that if you go on doing services in the mode of archon and doing other external services, I'm collecting money, I'm doing this thing, doing that thing, then you just go on doing that for the rest of your life, and then automatically at the time of death, axiomatically you'll be entitled to get Krishna praying. So this is not a good understanding. If you will practice different kinds of services, you understand, it will fertilize the heart in such a way that if you will then deepen the practice and it turns to bhajan, it will reveal through Swarup Shakti in incremental stages, it will reveal your perfection. You understand? It's not that it's automatic. It's not like in Christianity, the idea is there that I've given my heart to Jesus Christ. And if I go on attending church on Sunday, giving tithes, doing other things, at the end of life, I will be due and in a sort of entitlement for my faith and loyalty. I'll be due to go to heaven. Understand? So this is not the truth in bhakti. It's not really the truth in Christianity either. But it is not the facts in bhakti. Bhakti requires that the Atma becomes realized of its own nature. So like, I'm giving an example here. Narada Muni, when he was describing his perfection to Vyasadeva, I think it's the first canto, chapter 6, he's describing how he became perfect. And he describes the process of getting the mercy of the 4 Kumaras who had come to stay with him and his mother during the rainy season. Having rendered service to them and having taken their Mahaprasad, he received their blessing. You understand? So he's getting the kripa of sadhus. When he got the kripa of a sadhu, it manifests first in an adverse way, in that his mother was bitten by a snake and now he was left all alone. Then he began to practice bhakti, and he describes his practice, chanting the holy name, wandering from one town to city, right, being completely dependent on Bhagavan, right? But he still had a special attraction to Vanvas. Vanvas means life in the forest, because it's a very peaceful atmosphere and so forth and so on. So when his practice matured, then Sri Krishna gave him a darshan, means a sporti. In that sporti, his bhajan fully developed to the stage of bhav. You understand? He fully developed. He saw Bhagavan. He had some understanding. His desire was increased intensely when that sporti disappeared. But then, when he tried to practice again, he could not get that darshan. Then Bhagavan revealed to him in the heart, listen, Nard, it is not your practice that gives revelation. The revelation is by my kripa. So now, you should go on practicing. And I'm only giving you a darshan to increase the intensity of your practice. So Nard again began to practice with deep intensity based in the deep mood of separation from Bhagavan. When he did that, at a certain time, he had complete realization of everything. And then he describes himself. At the time when his death came, he describes Prayujamani Mahitam Sudam Bhagavatim Tanum. At that time, I saw Parabdha Karma Nirvano Anyapatat Panchabodhika. My body of 5 elements and Parabdha Karma which is held in the subtle body. So he's essentially saying, excuse me, my subtle body and my gross body fell away. At that time, Prayujamani Mahitam Sudim Bhagavatim Tanu. I saw a spiritual body that was awarded to me, which was perfectly suitable according to my mood of service to serve Bhagavan. The word Tanu means a body. Sudim, it was pure, which means it was composed of Swarup Shakti. Understand? And Prayuj, my Atma and that body became, Prayuj means literally one. In the verse, the word Prayuj is translated as awarded, right? So it took me quite some time to ask so many of my seniors and to try to get an understanding why this word Prayuj, which seems like in Sanskrit it means Prayuj. Yuj is very similar to yoga, to bind something. Prayuj means completely bound. But there the word is translated in the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He says, Prayujamane means niyamane. It means by the mercy of Bhagavan. You understand? It means awarded. Niyamane means awarded. But it's because without the mercy of Bhagavan, this does not happen. Therefore, Prayujamani happens by the mercy of Bhagavan. Therefore, the word awarded is used in the translation. Understand? So, by describing how he became perfect, he gave the example of what happens. So now, back to our discussion. When the sadhu gives instruction in bhajan, and you're practicing in bhajan, the kriya, this word kriya, where we say bhajana kriya, has two meanings. One is activity. Kriya just means activity. But it also refers to the kriya shakti. It means the power by which Bhagavan dispenses incremental stages of Swarup Shakti. And actually it's being dispensed by Radhika, because she's Bhakti Shakti. You understand? And it's mentioned in the 11th canto of Bhagavatam, in the conversation between Maharaj Nimi and the Navayogendras, Bhaktya Sanjatya Bhaktya. Bhakti comes from Bhakti. The object of Bhakti is Bhagavat Prem, but Bhakti is coming from Bhakti. So by the mercy of Srimati Radharani, in incremental stages, the Kriya Shakti, the power within the Swarup Shakti, is manifesting in incremental stages. Understand? So now, Bhajana Kriya is the power also that does Anartha Nivritti. So in other words, there are four types of four nartas. You can read Madhurya Kandambini. If I try to start going into that, then this session will become extremely long. So there are four types of four nartas, 6 types of unsteady devotion, 5 types of mental distraction. You understand? So altogether, these things really comprise the obstacles to the attainment of pure bhakti. And those anarthas are removed by the intensification of the practice and the Kripa Shakti of Sri Guru and Guru Parampara. Those anarthas are removed. Understand? And this is because sometimes devotees have an idea that I will work on myself and remove my anarthas, and then when I remove my anarthas, I will realize pure devotion. But we don't have the power to remove anarthas. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur sang very nicely, Ekakya mal nahi pai bhal Harinam Sankirtane. Even having possession of Harinam, you understand? I find no power in myself to remove anarthas, problems, sins, etc. Ekakya mal nahi pai bhal Harinam Sankirtane. Krishna say tumhara, Krishna deti paro tumhara sapatyache. O Vaishnav Thakur, sadhu, you have Krishna. You have the power also to give Krishna to others. Amitu Kangal, Krishna, Krishna Boli, Dayata Pache Pache. Therefore, I'm going to abandon this idea of being the kartatua or doer, which is simply a carryover from my material idea of being the doer. We carry that into our spiritual practice and think, yes, I'm going to remove my anarthas, work on myself, and become pure. Your becoming pure is by the nature of the influence of Swarup Shakti, which is strictly coming from mercy. Everything about the practice is mercy. But we have to endeavor. Right? Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and other acharyas have described the Damodar Bandhan Leela. And they've described that when Mother Yashoda tried to tie Krishna, she always came up 2 fingers too short. So they gave the analogy that these two fingers too short indicate that we need to do two things. One is endeavor, but then the other is expect that Kripa will come. You understand? So you need Kripa and you need endeavor. So two things. So when the Kripa Shakti and our endeavor come together, this is how anarthas are removed. Then when anarthas are removed, the chitta which had previously been vacillating with the influences of the material energy and trying to walk the path of spiritual life, so from the spiritual influences we have, so much dichotomous energy takes place in the chitta, because we're like the battle of Kurukshetra. We're in a war between our previous material influences and the adunik, means the current, and praktan, previous spiritual influences. So many devotees become almost schizophrenic in trying to deal with that combination of energies affecting their Atma. So here, it's explained when the anarthas are removed, as I mentioned, by desire, practice, and kripa, then nischalaya yasha iti nishta. The chitta becomes nishta, it becomes steady. Why? Because now it becomes a fit receptacle for the spiritual energy, unaffected by the constant bombardment so much of material energy. That stage is called nishta. Then from that stage of nishta, because the consciousness now is very much unaffected by the constant bombardment of the material energy, it's not vacillating as much, it becomes calm. It becomes where it's perceptible that when you hear Harikatha, the Harikatha and the inherent sweetness and energy in the Harikatha can come onto the chitta and manifest its efficacy and give revelation and also give pleasure. So the next stage is called ruchi. Ruchi means taste. And this all relates back to the verse I'm mentioning, ruchi bish chitta masranya. So don't lose contact with the original point. So I'm describing what is these ruchi. What does this ruchi mean? Right? So this ruchi, now in maturation, tat bhava adi madhyure shuti dirapakshate nasasana yuktingsha ta lobat utpakti lakshanam. So in this verse, the word lobe means greed. So now that the consciousness is steady, when Harikatha is heard and the sweetness of the Nam, Rup, Gun, Parika and Leela of Krishna are heard, then the chitta digests that as a desire to also serve like those Parikas. Inspired by the Nam, Rup, Gun, right, and Leela of Krishna, one identifies Parikar, whom one particularly has a sweet attraction to how they're serving. Now, I want to make a point here, because Rupa Goswami makes, and Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakurpad commented on it in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The genesis of this ruchi is not in just this life. I've already described previous impressions. So, Rupa Goswami writes to clarify this in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Yatottaram Surupamastno Yatottaram aso aswada Viseshulashumayipi. Yatottaram aso swada Viseshulashumayipi. So here he's saying, Yatottaram, that the various kinds of taste from Dasyaras all the way up to Madhuryaras have different qualities. And when you look at them from a neutral position, right, the Tastavi Charile Taratama, it's mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita and Ramananda Samvad, then it is seen that because all of the elements of the previous rasas all end up being contained in Madhurya Rasa, from a neutral position, Madhurya Rasa appears to be the highest. You understand? This is not a matter of the particular inclination or ruchi or ras one eventually has. One feels completely fulfilled in that rasa. So the rasas are not in competition for inferiority and superiority. I answered this question previously for someone. But from a neutral position, in relation to how Krishna is pleased, Madhurya Rasa has the top position. You understand? So try to understand this and don't make it mundane. Right? Okay. Enough said. Alright. So he says, but Viseshu Lashmayapi. What caused the particular Visesh, ulas, of a particular mood to arise in any particular person? Then he says, Rati Vasanaya Swadhi Bhashate Kapikasyatit. It is due to Rati Vasanaya. Rati Vasanaya means previous impressions. Where did those previous impressions come from? So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Pad, Jiva Goswami analyzes the idea of the impressions themselves. He says, if there are no impressions, how could a person have any particular inclination towards a particular mood of service? If there are multiple inspirations or multiple impressions, then a person would be in rasabhas because they'd have so many different impressions going on in the consciousness. But there must have been one single kind of impression which has given rise over lifetimes to a particular kind of ruchi. When a person is mature enough to get a particular manifestation of ruchi in their practice, it has not come just in that life. It is the result of a gada sanskar. Gada sanskar means a deep impression in the atma from an experience. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Pad says that experience is from the original contact with a sadhu who has that particular mood. So a gada sanskar of that particular mood is in the atma of the jiva, caused by association with that sadhu. This is why the verse, Krishna Bhakti Janma Mula Hoy Sadhu Sangha. The root cause of bhakti in the aspirant is sadhu sangha. You understand? So I don't want to go, some time ago there was a lot of confusion and discussion around how the nature of the Swarupa of a jiva comes about, whether it's an inherent factor that's just predetermined and so forth, so on, or whether it has come from being given by a sadhu. But there's so many elements to this that you have to really do a deep dive and really try to get clarity on these things. I have previous discussions that I've discussed, and still there are different devotees with different opinions on this. But what I've gleaned from it, I put in various tapes earlier if you want to go back and look at those. But I don't want to go into it here because it will again sidetrack our main discussion. So he's saying basically this ruchi, which we're speaking about, is from the gada samskar coming from the previous association in previous lives of a sadhu. Understand? Now, this ruchi, it is of the nature that it does not require sastra and sastra yukti. So what is the meaning here? Oh, does it mean that we don't need sastra at the point of the stage of ruchi? All of Harikatha, all Krishna's pastimes are written in sastra, so how can you say you don't need sastra? And yukti means two things. It means the philosophical understanding of the sastra and the philosophical and the pragmatic application of the sastra. Right? So it means like the logic inherent there, how you will apply it, how you'll understand this context or that context. But it says here, Nasa sasana yuktingscha tau lobat utpatti lakshanam. So the point is that this word lob means greed. It means that the sanskar, that gada sanskar, has reached a point where the predominance of the sweetness in the lila does not require sastra and sastra yukti to have the effect of giving ulas or increasing the greed of the aspirant. It doesn't. I'm giving an example. We will read Satakoti Gopi, Madhavaman. Billions of gopis, they came to the bank of Jamuna at Vamsivat to dance with Krishna. If you've been to Braj, immediately the question can come, how 1 million people will fit on the bank of Vamsivat? Right? And some person will go, let me look in Sastra, how does this work, how does that work? But in the stage of Ruchi, the absorption and the sweetness in the Leela does not dictate that I need to have explanation of Sastra and Sastra Yukti, the logic of this, to taste the sweetness of Krishna's Ras Leela. Bhagavan Pitara Trisa Utpali Kamalika Viksham Nantu Manasa Chakre Mayayamupasritam, Yogmayupasritam. One will become absorbed in thinking how Krishna on the full moon night in Sarad season, how looking at the full moon, he became inspired to call the gopis for us. One will think that Krishna over many years has been developing this from the time of Kaliya Damana Leela, when the gopis coming into their maturation slightly and Krishna coming into his maturation slightly began to look at each other with the affection called Purvarag, the looking at each other in a conjugal way, right? And then Purvarag takes place, and then the Vatstra Haran Leela, Krishna stealing the clothes of the gopis during their last day when they went after Katyayani Vrat, right? Then the lifting of Govardhan Hill, and then in Krishna's 8th year, his calling for us. So one will think of all these pastimes and will be nourished, and ulas will come, means enthusiasm will come, because taste is there based on greed. The greed to have a mood of serving. Because lobh means lobh in a particular mood of service. And then when that matures, that ruchi turns into ashakti. Ashakti then avails the heart to receiving the abhas, or a shadow of the mood of a particular associate in whom one has aspiration to serve like. Specifically, it means that one's relationship with Guru now can accommodate the reflection of Sri Guru's mood, because Sri Guru is the archetype of the mood you want to serve in, if it's true Guru-disciple relationship. So now the mood of that Guru, if it's not, like in the case of Hridoy Chaitanya and Shamananda, then Guru will, examining the ruchi, means the mood of that disciple, send him to the appropriate Siksha Guru, in which his mood, which is Swajatya, to that person. Swajatya means the same as that person, like Jiva Goswami has the mood of Vilas Manjari, is his Nitya Swarup. Then Shamananda's Kanak Manjari, that mood is developed in the association of Jiva Goswami Pad. Hridoy Chaitanya is in the mood of Sakya Rasa. You understand? So in the same way, if the Guru sees, or your ruchi is like this, and he has a different mood, he will send you for Siksha, or she will send you for Siksha to accommodate the nourishment of that mood. In Jaivadama Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we see that Gopal Guru Goswami simply had Brajanath and Vijay Kumar come on separate days. This is because Gopal Guru Goswami himself is in Madhurya Rasa, and being in Madhurya Rasa, he can give Siksha to both things. Understand? Now, so in the stage of a Shakti, Jiva Goswami has said, Tasya Tadrasa Sudakaraka Basa Suma Tasya Tadrasa Sudakaraka Basa Sumalatika Hridaya Spatika Mani. So Spatika Mani means a crystal. When the heart has become crystal-like, it is capable of catching and reflecting clearly, with nuance, the moods for which one aspires. So the Abbas, Sudha Karaka Abbas, of your own Gurudev, if he has the same mood, reflects, the shadow of it comes fully on your heart. At that time, the fullness of your conviction of understanding your Swarup is manifest. Then it only awaits what I'm describing now, Sudha Sattva Viseshatma Prem Suryansa Samyabhak Ruchi Bees. That Ruchi, which is now developed all the way to this stage, we've discussed the whole development of it, Ruchi Bees, Chitta Masuranya, it melts away any last vestiges of the material chitta. This is what was described by Narada Muni, right? Parabdha Karma Nirvano Anyapata Panchabodhika. When this mood appeared, all of his Parabdha Karmas, which are contained in the subtle body, all were melted away. Therefore, the gross material body had nothing left to do, nor will the subtle body create a new material body, but rather that descent of Ruchi Bis Chitta Masanya, melting away the ahamkar and the false ego and the subtle body, now avails that the pure spiritual body can be realized. This stage is called bhav avast, or being absorbed in the stage of one's actual spiritual identity, which has been completely revealed by the descent of Swarup Shakti, especially the Samvit and Aladini Shaktis, descending now in the purified consciousness, which is now Sandini Shakti. Understand? So this is the stage of Bhav, Prabhu, what you inquired about. Right? And this is the goal of the practice of sadhana bhakti. Right? So when we come to that stage, then very quickly in that stage we will practice. I'm not saying the practice is very quick. I'm saying I have to speed up here because I have other services. So, but in the stage of Bhav, you'll practice in Bhav Avas, in the absorption of the stage of Bhav, two ways, because you still have a material body. Rupa Goswami described, Seva Sadika Rupena Siddha Rupena Chatrahi Tad Bhava Lipsunakara Raja Lok Anusarata. So internally, in the spiritual identity you realize, you will follow your own Guru Rupa Sakhi, especially if you know their Swarup, and others in that mood, in their mode of service internally. Externally, you will follow them as they appeared in Gaur Leela. As Rupa Goswami did Bhajan in Gaur Leela, Sanatana Goswami did Bhajan in Gaur Leela, your Guru Dev is doing Bhajan in Gaur Leela. You'll follow that example. So, in Sadat form, you'll do Shravan, Kirtan, all the things you've been doing, but now there's maturation and realization and experience. Right? So this is your entrance in Gaur Leela. Understand? Internally, you are suitable now in your understanding to accommodate entrance internally into Krishna Leela. Right? Because you go through Gaur Leela to get into Krishna Leela. What is this? Gaurangera Rasanave Seitaranga Jabeduve Shri Radha Madhav Antaranga. Understand? Now at the end of this life, because this body cannot accommodate the fullness of the nature of prema itself, so only a ray of that prema called Bhav has appeared. But once you give up this body, then a full Vastu body composed of Swarup Shakti completely, with no secondary form composed of the material elements, will appear in a place wherever Krishna is performing his Prakat Leela within the material universes. Born from the womb of a gopi at that time, if you've been doing Raganuga Sadhan, you will appear in wherever Krishna is performing his Prakat Leela, and in that Vastu body, your prem will then grow in association of Nitya associates in the particular mood for which you have received the spiritual body. So hopefully, Prabhu, that was helpful. It was a little long, but I think understanding details is also important. Unfortunately, I could not go into every detail of everything, but still for my own edification and certainly, Prabhu, hopefully for your benefit, there's a clarity. That Bhav as the goal of sadhana is one thing. Bhav relating to Mahabhav is the development of Prem, which is a second understanding and a secondary development once one has obtained Prem. But the goal of the practice of Bhakti, which is of two kinds, Sadhan Bhakti, Vaidhi or Raganuga. We particularly are practicing Raganuga Bhakti because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was mentioned, or Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami is written, Sakale Jagate More Vaidhi Bhakti Brajabhav Paiti Noi Sakti. You cannot obtain service in Vrindavan by the Mura Vaidhi Bhakti, and we see that our Srila Prabhupada and our entire line coming from Bhakti Vinod Thakur, from Mahaprabhu all the way down to Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhakti Saraswati Thakur, our Srila Prabhupada, our Guru Pada Padma, have all established in the practice moods related to Vrindavan. You'll find it hard-pressed to find anything in our practice which is not related to Vrindavan. We wake up in the morning during Brahma Muhurta hours, the indication here. In the external practice of Archan, it's considered that from 3:30 in the morning to 6 o'clock is an auspicious time of day. Right? In Bhajan life, this means this is the time when those who are doing Manjari Seva arise and they serve Sri Radhakrishna Yugal during Nisant Leela. You understand? So I'm just giving you a quick pictorial difference between understanding Archan and what is Bhajan. You understand? So if you look at our practice and you look thoroughly and deeply at it, you'll see all the elements of Raganuga Sadhan. Prior to being able to understand Raganuga Sadhan, which in earnest becomes practiced at the stage of Ruchi, when lobe manifests, it is called Raganuga Pravritti. And we should not mistake the following of rules and regulations as only Vaidhi Bhakti. And that in Raganuga Bhakti, no rules and regulations are followed. I did a whole other session on this. Whether you're following Raganuga Bhakti or Vaidhi Bhakti, you'll have to observe Vidhis. Vidhi means rules and regulations. Guru Padashraya, rising during Mangalarati, chanting a fixed number of rounds. These things don't go away. It doesn't matter what kind of bhakti you're practicing. Right? And if you're not doing these things, you're not practicing any bhakti. Understand? And just to make it clear, it says, Shravanam Kirtanani, Vairi Bhakti Sudanti too. Even when one picks up the practice of Raganuga Sadhan, then the hearing, chanting, remembering according to Sastra and Sastra injunctions is still maintained. Understand? Because especially as you move closer to Bhav, and in the practice of Bhav in particular, there's something called Bhav Sambandhi, Bhav Anukul, Bhav Pratikul, Bhav Virud, right? So there are certain things which are favorable to nourishing your particular mood as you become mature and understand that, and some things which are not as favorable. So as one becomes more mature, for instance, then contemplation of Dwarka as a separate lila would be Bhav Avirud or Bhav Pratikul. It will not nourish your mood. You understand? Pratikul actually means doing things which are adverse to your mood. Right? Just like Bhav Anukul, right, means things that are favorable. Following Ekadasi, right, observing Janmastami Tithi, Gaura Pranim, Radhastami Tithi, all these things, they are very favorable to the practice of bhakti. Understand? All right, I think I should end here. And Prabhu, if you have any additional questions or anything, you can always rewrite, and I may not do a whole nother presentation like this, but I may just answer you personally. All right? By Dandavat Pranam, Vancha Kalpaturvishcha, Kripa Shinduvevacha, Patitanam Pavnevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Jai Radhe Radhe.